So one thing I was thinking about today, and I found it very interesting. I've been practicing training Jiu Jitsu for 2.5 years now. And I got my blue belt, and then I just got another stripe on my belt. So I haven't been doing it a long time. Now, it's not my first time being around grappling. I grew up grappling. I started wrestling at like 5 or 6. And wrestled all the way up until I was a senior in high school. And I wrestled 189 as a senior. Now, I wasn't no rock star by any means because I didn't take wrestling very serious. It was kind of an interesting relationship I had with it because a lot of my life in wrestling was losing. It was constantly losing. Especially my freshman year of high school, I went 5-25 or something. Some dumb, outrageous number. I couldn't remember what it was. I started, but I went 5-25, so it was like consistently I'd go on a match and I'd lose, but I kept coming back. So I guess in essence, wrestling taught me that life is very similar to how wrestling is very similar to how life is. You're going to constantly lose, and you're going to have a nugget here and there. You're going to have your wins here and there. It definitely taught me how to deal with adversity. But again, I wrestled from at least 5 or 6 years old in Iowa until I was 17. If you wrestled in Iowa and you just wrestled like the normal times that the average kid does, your quality of wrestling is pretty substantial. It's crazy. I've gone, and I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this until I started doing how the fuck you say it? Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. I didn't realize it until I started doing it. And it was insane. Now, the crazy transition I had from coming from wrestling to 10 years later, I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I did a little bit of MMA out of high school, but not much. It wasn't really my thing because it was like these fighters and the crowd that I was around. I just didn't feel comfortable being there just because of there's interesting guys. Like, they're not normal guys that seek out fighting. So like I was a stoner kind of kid. I just didn't get along with these kind of guys. And I remember some occasions at the MMA gyms. There was one I went to in Des Moines, and I was doing a grappling class, and this kid, he definitely had some traumas for sure. Because I remember him getting really, really irritated with me. But it wasn't my thing. So anyways, I transitioned 10 years later to jiu-jitsu, and it's interesting. It's interesting. Now, you have the mat time, right, that you had wrestling. You're comfortable with somebody being on top of you, or controlling another human, or understanding distance. If I can touch you, I can take you down, in a way. If I can touch certain parts of your body, I for sure can take you down. So it's like, if I can touch your head, it's one thing, but if I can get your head below my head, then I can take you down. It's pretty easy once I get your head below my head, but it's also, your head has to go below the other opponent's head if you want to take a shot, 9 times out of 10. But wrestling transitioned really well to jiu-jitsu. But you look at them as martial arts, which they are, right? But they both have a philosophy behind them. They both have this way of operating to get to the final goal of each art, right? Jiu-jitsu is very technical. It's more elaborate than wrestling. Wrestling, okay, here's a good example. I've yet to do a jiu-jitsu practice, right? A hard one, even close to what we had in high school, wrestling practices. In wrestling practices, we would wrestle for 2-3 hours sometimes. And a lot of times we would be in sweats. And then we would do sprints in the halls after. I mean, it was insane the amount of cardio we had back then. I've yet to do a practice like that. Now, granted, my diet was terrible. But I will say this. They are two different philosophies, right? And they both transition to how you operate within your life. You can notice it. I can notice a lot by a man by how he rolls. It's how that person deals with adversity in the sport, the art. This is how he operates throughout the world in some aspects. There is no lying in jiu-jitsu. There's no lying in wrestling. You say you're this, well, so let's see it. Even other martial arts, whereas boxing, yeah, but that's more dangerous. There is no lying when you come in that room. There is only the truth in those rooms. That's one thing that jiu-jitsu's helped me realize from what I had in a wrestling room. There was only truth in the wrestling room. There were no lies. You could think you were good. That's great. We'll see. Same in jiu-jitsu. It's no different. And these sports are so similar, it's crazy, but they're also so different in other ways. It's interesting how I interpret the world now after starting this sport. It's something that I lacked growing up practicing a martial art. Whether you realize or not, wrestling is a martial art. And that's one thing I didn't realize either. I never considered wrestling a martial art. I did and I didn't. I always knew if a kid didn't wrestle and I can get my hands on him, it ain't gonna be good. I always knew that. I had a weird confidence about that, but I also knew there was a slight anxiety I had if I had an interaction with somebody. Like, when I just had, my experience from growing up wrestling, and then I had an altercation with somebody, there was still a little bit of anxiety. I get, not anxiety, but, understanding what I was lacking by only having wrestling. Now that I have, a couple years of submission grappling, jiu-jitsu under my belt, that weirdly has disappeared. I don't have that anymore. Now I respect all men, but I'm not afraid of any man. Nope. Not afraid of a one. That's another thing that's come upon me. I did have it before, but I was almost lying to myself before. Now that I'm learning something, the fear that I had is disappearing. That's another thing that goes away when you practice these two sports. these two arts, fear goes away. Not all fear, but a lot of fear. A lot of fear that the average person has that they don't realize that could be solved by jiu-jitsu, grappling. You know, you come into these rooms, right? And you participate in a practice, especially jiu-jitsu. A lot of people come, they roll, they get their ass kicked, and they never come back again. When I came, I got my ass kicked, but I just wanted more. And some people stay, come back, because they realize they've been lying to themselves for so long, and this is the only way for truth. Because some men want the truth. Some men don't want to live in fear. This is what these sports, arts, have taught me. No matter your size, your weight, technique is king. Especially against an untrained opponent. It's crazy what a man is capable of if he learns. It's math, it's geometry, it's leverage. Tiny calculations in your head when you're making moves that either could lead to a submission or to even you being submitted. It is a very elaborate game of chess. Very elaborate. And only the highly intelligent, with some physical attributes, will dominate. This is why that sport intrigues me. How you operate in these sports is definitely how you operate throughout the world. I find it very interesting. I was rolling the black belt the other day. I noticed, and now that I actually think about it, I noticed that when he's not doing anything, those in-between moments in a certain move, was thinking. There was more going on when he wasn't doing something than when he was. See, he has time to think moves ahead, figure out what avenues I have, what are the options I have, and there is some gambling that goes on. And when I make a move, he has a route for it, but not just one route. He has an avenue of where that goes after you get to that position. They are 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. If you do rubber guard, if your initiative, if your main goal is to do a omoplata, it is crazy the amount of steps it takes to get to that position. If your objective is to submit somebody with that and they're in your guard, there is, God, it's got to be 7 steps, I think. You're thinking 7 steps ahead. Right? 7 steps ahead. for that submission. You're in guard, right? You're in guard. Then you gotta go to mission control, and then you have to do zombie to get their hand on the mat, right? So now we're at 3. Then you gotta go to New York, which is where you grab your knee and you tuck it, and then you have to pull the foot. Oh, wait, you gotta clear the head with your hand, and then you got to pull your foot over their face, all the way over to the neck. So now we're at 6, right? We hadn't even close to finished yet. So once you pull that, now you got to transition your hips to the omoplata. So now you're on top with their arm to the side. Now you're at 7. But you also need to make sure you catch them from rolling. You put your hand to the side. You're at 8. And then you need, actually, if you think about it, then you got to break them down. So they're going to be in turtle. You need to break them down from turtle. Once you get them broken on turtle, then you can finish on block. That's 10 steps. If that's your goal, that one position is 10 steps from start to finish. You have no idea how elaborate this game can be. Only the intelligent will win. I'm starting to see something here. A lot of these black belts out of me are very smart individuals. I haven't met a whole lot of legitimate black belts that are dumber than boxer rocks, but I could be wrong. You have to be intelligent, for the most part, to be good at that sport. There's 2 ways I look at it, right? There's a wall. Wrestling and Jiu Jitsu. There's 2 different ways of going about said wall. Jiu Jitsu, you're going to look for a route around, maybe above, below. You're going to think about which way is the best way to go through, right? Wrestling, you just run through the damn wall. And sometimes that works in Jiu Jitsu, I'm not going to lie. When in doubt, smash. And that's what's crazy about this new sport. ADCC is like one of the biggest grappling tournaments in the world. It's been around forever, right? And you're seeing wrestling and jiu-jitsu merging. And you're seeing this interesting form of grappling. Very interesting. I know there's a lot of savage wrestlers out there that don't practice jiu-jitsu. I stayed away from it because of the pajamas. I've been wearing them recently now, but I stayed away from it because I don't wear that thing. And it's just a totally different avenue. A lot of wrestlers come in there, get choked, like, fuck, I'm not ever coming back to that. But wrestling and jiu-jitsu together is very interesting. Now I'm getting a little older, but I think I would love to participate in this new wave of grappling. It's fun. Everybody should do it. I think so. I'm always telling people to do it. You got anxiety issues? Go to jiu-jitsu. You'll get over it real quick when you have a 300-pound man on top of you trying to choke you. That's our problem. We don't have these things to test us throughout the day because we live in this cushion society. We have it too good. This is why people are so weak. You need to go do jiu-jitsu. You need to. Because let me tell you what. It'll save your life. Some of you definitely would. And all you old wrestlers out there, oh my god, it is like a more chill version of wrestling, and you also get to choke them. The hardest thing is getting over is you can be on your back. So, if you get over that, dude, it's fun. I'll lay there, I'll do open guard, lay on my back, do a knee shield. You don't have to exert any energy, right? And then they exert all of it, and then you turn your juice on when you want to. Then they got leg locks, like you can tack legs. Love leg locks. They're so much fun, let me tell you. But the one thing I really did notice, honestly, and it just blows my mind. It blows my mind. Is you will never understand a person better than after you've rolled with them. Nothing gives away their personality more than when I roll with them. It really shows me how they operate. I have this sense now. I can tell when someone's thinking. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You see these people, right? These average Joes are killers. I mean, these guys are savages. But you'll never understand a human better than when you grapple with them. It's the same in wrestling. It's a different level of respect that you don't have with other men. Because other men didn't wrestle or do Jiu Jitsu. And they don't understand. They don't understand how vulnerable they are. When you do these sports, you'll understand how vulnerable you really are. A lot of people walk around thinking that they're all that. You're really not, my man. You're really not. But that's just some thought. I kind of went on a little rant there. But wrestling, jiu-jitsu, these are things that have been a part of my life. Wrestling was part of my life for 12 years. I mean, all of my upbringing was in Iowa for the most part, from 5 to 18. I mean, that is... And then I finally find something. I felt like I was missing something, really. I wrestled for all those years, and then you get away from it, and then you don't do it anymore. And I finally found this. And the funny thing is, you're not competing with someone else. You're competing with yourself. You're constantly challenging yourself every day, putting yourself in front of people. So many people become black belts, and the only thing stopping them from becoming black belts is themselves. There's something pretty pure about that belt. Can't be taken away from you. Maybe that, in a sense, is scary to people. Maybe they don't like the idea of being something like that. In wrestling, we didn't have belt systems. We just had wrestle-offs. You had your weight classes. It's very interesting. That's something I forgot about. Those wrestle-offs. You had kids that you grew up with and same weight, and it's like, dude, I'm starting at 189, bud. I had a kid that I go against. Played football with him. He's a grade below me. He started above me in football. And so I wrestled the same weight class as he did. I didn't start getting decent at wrestling until I was a senior. I mean, I had to wrestle against some savages. I mean, you'd look at these guys in the eye and be like, yeah, this is a grown man. And I'm 15, and I gotta go against this grown man? I mean, I was 15, right? And I was wrestling 145, right? I'm 6'2", 200 pounds now, right? So that tells you what stage in puberty I was. I'm a freshman, right? And I gotta go against these high-level wrestlers. Like 145. Oh my God. I had to wrestle a kid that wrestled at Iowa State. So I had to wrestle, right, a guy that was going to start at Iowa State. And I'm pretty sure he lost by like a point to the starter for first wrestle-offs when he went there the next year. I had to wrestle against him. And multiple other guys like him. I mean, I can think of a few other people that wrestled at either Iowa or Iowa State. I mean, it was insane, the crop of wrestlers that were in this vicinity. I mean, we're in the Des Moines region, so that's where all the wrestlers are going to be if they're going to be in Iowa. I mean, it was just some savages, and these kids, all they did was wrestle. They wrestled so much that it was common to hear that kids hated wrestling, but they still wrestled because their old man made them. I mean, the tournaments we used to go to on Saturdays, I mean, it was insane. It was insane. Wrestling is crazy in the state of Iowa. It is crazy. And that's one thing I started realizing, you know, if you go against good guys, you're going to be halfway decent. There was one kid that was like cousins of like these brothers and that were like really good wrestlers, but because he just wrestled them all the time, he became decent. Oh God, it's crazy. It's crazy, and I'll never take it back. I'm so glad I wrestled, you know. And people know that, you know. Even here, you tell people you wrestled, and they're like, oh shit, it's a different breed, man. I mean, you're controlling another human. You're making another human submit. And a lot of the chokes resort, if you don't let go, there's a weird amount of trust you have in jiu-jitsu when you have a dude like on your neck, right, choking you. And you could easily hold that and you could die, right? But you let go. Where else are you gonna find trust like that? I mean, there's dudes that I've rolled with, right? And other gyms here. I mean, there's some dudes, I don't even know their name, but I know them better than a lot of people they see in their everyday lives. That's what's funny about it. And we know that when we look at each other. I mean, we're practicing murder. So yeah, a little food for thought. A little rambling about my life growing up in jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And now that I have jiu-jitsu in my life, it's such a different way of operating through the world. You know, everything that's going on, I don't know if the reason I don't have any stress or anything towards it is because of this. I'm not sure. But I will say, it's been an awesome ride. Good night, guys.